This is gonna be a great one today. I woke up today feeling good. So, in case you guys don't know, behind the scenes, I I work with I like to call it a team, and in that team, there's like 4 or 5 of us, maybe less. I'm not exactly sure. I get stuck up in the emails, and we get a list of people we communicate. So, who do we want to interview for this next episode, for this next coming month? It's all about networking. You meet someone and then they suggest someone. And when I saw this person and this person's name, I was like, that name sounds familiar. So a little bit about a backstory. The person that we're interviewing today or having a chat with, I like to say, um, so his organization is to help people with families who have children who have life-threatening illnesses or injuries. And each year, what the organization talking about is Connor's Cause, and each year they provide financial support assistance for families in San Diego, Imperial, and Riverside County. And last year, around February, before everything went lockdown, what I say last year? Yeah, I think it was last year. I get stuck up ever since 2020 paused. Um, I got a letter and I didn't know who it was, you know, but I did know there were 6 Legoland tickets, and me and my family enjoyed it before, I swear, everything closed. And that organization is Connor Cause, and today I am joined with the co-founder of Connor's Cause. He went to San Diego State as a graphic designer. And a fun fact about it, I guess, for the past 40 years, him and his buddies spend a week of every year to pay FIBA Olympics just to be an 18-year-old again. Please welcome Jon Champ.
Hi, Manny. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Like I said, I was excited to have you here. I want to learn obviously more about you and Connor's Cause, the meaning behind it. So, for the people that are just finding out about Connor's Cause, you mind explaining a little bit about it, like the backstory?
Well, in 1993, our son Connor came down with a brain tumor that turned out to be inoperable. So it was a huge, shock for our family, and a lot of our friends just gathered around us to support us in whatever way they could, and we were, pretty much in shock and not able to even breathe, for that matter. It was such a shock, and it was just a grassroots effort to help our family for things that weren't included in insurance, and things to go beyond helping our child with special furniture and different alternative therapies and whatnot. And Connor's Cause just sprang out of that just spontaneously as a nonprofit, so that we could help other children while we were helping Connor. So Connor was still alive at the time, and a gala was organized to raise funds for our family for the first one. Connor passed away 9 months after his diagnosis, but Connor's Cause kept on as a legacy to Connor. It turns out that there was a huge need for families that had kids with life-threatening illnesses in San Diego. They had nowhere to turn. Connor spent a lot of his time at Rady's Children's Hospital, and there are caseworkers there that have people approach them all the time for basic needs like help with utility bills and alternative therapies and things that are just not covered by insurance. So they were a huge source to just refer families to us once they found out about Connor's Cause, and it kind of it's been going on ever since. That's been about 25 years now. So what we didn't have a real mission to, other than helping families with children with life-threatening illnesses, as to how we were going to help. But there was such a need for just basic things to be done for them. We've helped approximately 5,000 families since then. So that's about pretty much one a day. So it's really heartwarming to me. Well, when we'll have a board meeting and there's a list a mile long of families that need help, that we can make a little dent in being able to help these people. We have a golf tournament once a year and some other events, and it's a very small organization, but it's been chugging along for quarter of a century now. So I'm pretty proud of that, and that it has our son's name attached to it. So he kind of lives on in a way, and it's very gratifying.
That's what I like to hear. What you said in the beginning, it started off as a little community, neighbors, and you said classmates. That's how a lot of things I see start, or I think should start. Being with the people you got around. I've been in situations where it's been tough. Thankfully, I have insurance, but I can't imagine the other families that may have the same or similar condition, and they gotta pay out of their pocket. I seen how much my medication has caused, and I'm thankful that I got insurance. But to think about other families that may need help, that's pretty tough. And I understand what these people go through, and that's why I appreciate organizations like Honor Cause, and they just help. It's a big relief when you got support around you.
Yeah, it's really gratifying. There are a lot of different organizations that help kids in different ways, or to build a new gym floor and different things. And I can't help but think every time, I go, gosh, what we do is so special to me and to the families, because I've been in their shoes as well, with having a child with a life-threatening illness. So that just knowing that how much it means to them to get a little help with a gas card or utility and all, if they really need it, is gratifying. It's one of the few things you can do. Lots of families, a lot of people say, well, I can't imagine what it's like to have a child with a life-threatening illness. Well, I can, and I know all about it, and it's one of the few things you can do for someone to take a little burden off of them, so that they can spend the time and energy they need to with their child.
And then how old was Connor before he passed?
He was 4, so he was diagnosed at about 3.5, and then hung in there for another 9 months. He had a brain tumor, so it was really, really inoperable. So we did everything we could and explored every single therapy, but he was 4 years old.
So I don't know what age you discover how the person is, but at 4 years old, how would you describe Connor? How was
he was a really special kid. Everyone has a special child and reveres their kid, but he had a lot of charisma. He was very outgoing. He would end up introducing people to one another. If he knew somebody didn't know someone, he would introduce them at 4 years old. That's pretty amazing, and he wanted to do things. He's super smart, and he was he had a real understanding, though. Fortunately, we had some hospice care for him, where we got counseling on how to handle the fact that he was in a dire way, and needed to talk to him about losing his body. And that was and the therapists, basically the providers, were saying, you need to talk to him about this, because you'll regret it if you don't. That's not something that you want to do, but we did, and he understood, and he being 4 years old, he was just so open and resilient. All the therapies he had and all that were really tough on him, he took it in stride every day, and stayed in the present with things. And I just learned a lot of lessons from him in life just by his general attitude, and especially as a kid, where his innocence with knowing that things were going to be good and be all right was just really inspiring to me and a lot of people around him.
And now he lives through this organization. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned all these therapy. I had flashback when I first got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
No one in my family had what I had, which is Morgul syndrome, or MPS 4. It's a rare genetic disease that we have enzyme deficiency disorder. We lack enzymes. And at the time, my doctors didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Took
Wow.
a couple of
Wow.
years to discover. Like, we knew I had MPS, but we weren't sure what it
Wow.
was. Because if you look up MPS, there's like 1 through 5, and we weren't sure which one it was. And it's rare. If I remember correct, statistics are like 1 out of 3,000 in every children that get it. And I just remember, going to doctors constantly. You build a bond with these
Right.
doctors, but as a kid,
How old were you?
I was
Yeah.
3.5, turning
Mm-hmm.
4. Well, I was 4 when I had my first surgery. That was my legs. They tried to make me straighter. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I was just a kid. But as I got older, I want to say around 13 years old, there was this, I found out exactly what I had, which was MPS 4, Markle syndrome, and type A. So due to find my discovery, at the time, I already had technically 4 surgeries, both my knees, spinal, and back surgery. And then as soon as they found out what I had, I want to say it's been a year or 2, they had this new treatment where I would receive enzymes once a week and they would help me. And thankfully, I was there. That's why when you mentioned you help with utilities or medication, I'm like, I'm thankful that I got insurance, because I've seen the prices of this medication. Right. And I can't imagine people that have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
So I've been receiving this medication for 5 years, going to year 6. And I can't say how much I am grateful, because as a kid, if you meet people that know me before, I was this quiet, shy kid and said, well, I don't know if I want to do it, or I got to check in with my doctor.
Right.
We'll say 7th grade. I knew I wanted to become somewhere near a journalist. Mm-hmm. I had a mood change, and then positive things started to come, and now we're here.
Yeah, everything's relative, right? I mean, you're dealing with, life-threatening issues, so that other challenges that come along are, kind of put in their place, where I can see that happening easily, where it's like, well, I have other things to worry about, so I'm not going to put a burden on myself to not follow my dreams. And that's admirable. That's something that good comes from dealing with adverse situations, which I wouldn't be necessarily that conscious of, other than what happened with our family. So I hear you.
Yeah, and then when I first started, walking was a huge issue for me. Get tired easily. I don't have a picture of it, but at school I used to have this pretty bad wheelchair, oversized. So for those of you that don't know, I'm like 3'3", 3'4", 42 inches. And this big wheelchair for like a big person, torn up, couldn't even reach the leg rest. Where you sit was torn up. And it wasn't until the 8th grade, someone from the school decided to speak up And ever since, I had this motorized wheelchair, eyesight and everything, and that helps me get around.
Yeah, that's probably cherish it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I cherish the moment. It's the best thing I get, even though I hardly use
Yeah,
it now because we're stuck at home. Where do
that's
I
right.
go?
Yeah. Well,
So you had Connor, and then in the email you have one
right.
daughter. Is there any more?
Yes, my son Kyle. We had uh, Connor and then Kyle 2 years later. So Kyle, our other son, is he's going to be 30 here pretty soon, and he's a great kid. And Aaron came along 4 years after that. Having two children and losing one was not something we wanted to. We didn't want Kyle to be an only child. It's like, okay, let's have another child. And just a little sidebar, Aaron was my wife had two miscarriages, and then we thought a third, and it turns out that the baby hung in there and went at a sonogram to see, and she was the size of a pea on one side of my wife's uterus. The other side was kind of in a bad way, but she was on the opposite side, and it turns out she was hung in there. She's a great kid, and she was born 2 years to the day that Connor had passed away. So her birthday came along 2 years after Connor had passed. So when that day comes around every year, it's bittersweet. It's pretty amazing every year. It's been 20, 24, 25 years now that that day is pretty special. So
You have these children. I mean, obviously they have to know what they know about Connor, correct? Has there been, I don't know how to say it, but like, so what sometimes when siblings, with their siblings, there's something like, oh, you got that from your
oh
brother,
yeah,
or did you ever, maybe
yeah.
Kyle, you see something that Connor would do or used to
Yeah,
do?
there's a lot of that, a lot of traits. All my, well, everybody brags on their kids, but they're very good people, smart, athletic. There's a lot of little things that go on with we have kind of a joke with the Champ family that are similar, and we just kind of chuckle about them. But a general positive attitude, and yeah, there's lots of traits that I see all the time. I can't really relate those to my kids because Kyle was only 2 years old when Connor had passed away, and Aaron wasn't around yet. But definite similarities and personality and just general demeanor. Also, it's a good feeling for me. I wish I could that they could have been around to know Connor a little better.
Yeah, that's always nice to hear. Talked about Connor. What is the current goal right now for this organization? What's something you guys are working up, making a comeback after
Right.
this weird odd year, COVID
Well,
year?
it's just been I don't know that we have real solid goals per se. It's basically keep it going. I think there's a lot of nonprofits and charities that kind of come and go. So we, being that it was started as such a grassroots situation, it's kind of stayed that way, where it's just been kind of organic and plugging along and helping families as we can. So we don't have a grand plan to make X amount of dollars and all. We just want to keep it going, keep awareness in the community, and that's kind of the way it's been all along. We just have we have one executive director, so we're a small organization with a board of 7 people, and we just want to keep going along as we can. So that seems like a horrible thing to say, that there's no giant goal, but it's just to keep it going is still very, very gratifying, knowing that we help so many families.
That's awesome. Talked about Connor. Now let's talk about you as a person. Yeah, so you went to San Diego State.
Right.
You're not a San Diego State alum, and I'm currently working on getting into San Diego
Yeah, good.
State. So graphic design, what sparked your interest?
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I could draw pretty well and really enjoyed it, and always just kind of pursued doing it. It was just I'd find myself spending a lot of time doing it, and I started noticing, hey, how come everybody can't do this? And I could, make things, draw stuff, and had an interest in it, although in art in general. But I figured, well, what am I going to do? Sit on a pier and draw pictures of seagulls? I don't know. And then got introduced to commercial art, as it was called at the time, in high school, and did really well in that, and knew that that was something that I, maybe could follow. And then going to school, I didn't declare a major really until I was a junior, and it was like, well, you know what, I'm going to be a graphic designer. Somebody's got to do this. And it's interesting because there'd be a number of people like, oh, that's so competitive, and you can't make any money doing that, and people are so good, and why would you want to do that? And I'm thinking, I can do this. And then in taking classes, I can see that it's something where you've got to show your work. You literally put it up on a board for everyone to critique. And there were maybe 5 or 6 people in the class that you could tell were going to go on and really do it, versus get detoured to other careers. And so I just had confidence that I could do it. And slowly but surely, over a long time, I'd be the one in high school to make posters and banners and things. And then always did little freelance type stuff, and then learned it from one of my professors at San Diego State what was entailed in graphic design, where it's like, you don't have to be the one that makes the perfect illustration, because you're more, you can be an art director, and you hire somebody with a specific style you need to do that. Although you still would, make a comprehensive layout, they're called, like a comp, and draw something, give it to a real illustrator with the style you want to do it. And you don't have to take your own photos. You use a photographer. You can come up with headlines and concepts, but you don't write the copy. You get a copywriter. You don't print it. You get a printer. So it's like, hey, that's cool. You can art direct things. And that resonated with me. And that's what I ended up getting a job at a little print shop. And then soon thereafter, a small graphic design studio. Then I was an art director at a small agency, and found out, doing a little freelance also, and figured, gosh, if I can't go off on my own, something's wrong. Because, if I can't match my salary, all I got to do is bill a couple hours a week on average. I should be able to do this, and just kind of saw myself doing it. And over the years, it took off enough to be a really rewarding career. And I ended up with my own little design studio, and turned it over to my partners about 3 years ago. So I've been retired for a couple of years now, and it was all good. I ended up having a little shop, and I live kind of near Del Mar, and a couple miles down the street, had a little ocean view design studio there. And I always figured, since I was about 25, gosh, if I have a job here in Del Mar as a designer, who would ever leave, and why would you want to? So a lot of my friends to LA to become art directors and all. Some of my contemporaries I went to school with, and I figured, what is wrong with you, man? If you could stay here and still do this. So that's the 30-year overview in a minute.
Yeah. No. You mentioned graphic design. I actually took a class in high school, so I know a tiny bit. And let me tell you, the time you put in it, I already forgot the proper vocabulary already. The little parts,
elements of design.
Yeah, I so much respect to you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's not actually the key is one of the things I learned is as a graphic designer anyway, it's like time is really an enemy. You got to be able to come up with an idea and execute it within shortest amount of time without, compromising it, of course. But if you sit and noodle things forever, you're going to miss deadlines and never, make a good living at it. Because you got to do it, which is really key. And that's that kind of separates people. I'd have some old teachers that would just go, you know what, if you want to draw pictures and hang them on the fridge for your mom, that's one thing, but God damn it, you got to get this stuff done, which is really, really true. And it's, there's no reason not to be able to do that. It's, lots of stuff can be super time consuming, but you need to have a good enough idea and know how to execute it properly.
It's like a journalist, a
Yeah,
staff writer.
you can't sit and doodle away.
You can't sit doing nothing, you know. When I'm writing a story, I spend at least 3 hours minimum trying to get my source. Hey, can we do an interview now? Or hey, you said this and that. Or spending writing the story, trying to get it to my editors as soon as
no
possible.
kidding. We'll do a story on the big game 4 days later. What do you think? Right?
Yeah, that happened 4 days ago. I needed. Can't do that. It's tough, especially in a year where campus was closed. You really back then, or when we were all there, you could have just walked up to the person and did an interview on the spot.
Yeah.
And now we're relying on interviews, phone calls, and Zoom.
Get your sources right now. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's been tough. I had a fair share experience with my sources. Yeah, but it's So before we wrap this things up, like I mentioned, I let my guests ask me whatever they want to know about me or anything in interest, opinions, or.
Well, how do you? One thing, what you were just talking about on, do you have people you go to school with that you that you interact with people with your journalism and all too? Are there people that you kind of click with that know we're going to do some things? What I've learned about you is, being a early college kid, just doing things like this podcast and writing for the newsletter and all the stuff you do. I mean, that's kind of above and beyond, and real immersion and giving you experience where I got to think that a lot of kids are just kind of going through the motions of doing this. And you can, I guess my question is, can you tell who's going to do this for real in a couple of years versus who's kind of going through the motions? And do you relate with them?
So it's kind of hard right now. We're all in Zoom. Actually, in 2 hours, I meet with my team, the writers. You can't tell who's going to do it for real if they got their cameras off during class.
Yeah.
But and then you mentioned connecting with people. For me, ever since I was like in 7th grade, 12, 13, I said, I want to be something around reporting. And I mainly said sports. But I never said exactly what I wanted to do. So it wasn't until, my freshman year, this year, where I took a regular journalism class. In my mind, I'm going to talk about sports. And then I took this class, which started me writing for the Telescope, the school paper. And like, you know what? I actually like writing about anything in general.
Yeah.
And then I have a plan, continue writing till I transfer. Hopefully, fingers crossed, transfer to San Diego State. I continue doing what I'm doing. Take the podcast with me, so the guests has a minute, what I'm up to, where I'm at. So right now we're wrapping up writing. We are releasing I believe it's our 10th or 11th edition of our magazine I did a story on a local business here in Escondido where it's a boxing gym, but they focus with people who have Parkinson's disease, and I'm excited to share that with my guests once it's out. Not my guests, my viewers, everyone.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's well, I have another question. I mean, do you, with the physical challenges you've been with since you were like 3 years old, do you consciously have things you do to kind of pay attention to that, and feel the gratitude or put it in perspective with things, or does that just kind of come along, or do you is there stuff you do specifically to keep positive? Because that's what your whole podcast is about, and all of your guests and all too. So
I mentioned it in like the second
Yeah.
episode, when we first started. But just to give the new viewers a little thing, I said in that podcast, I'm still a kid, a teenager. I have my moments, my breakdowns, right? But the way I like to stay positive, physically, there's a lot of things I can't do. When I go out in my chair and I gotta press the light, that's why this world ain't fair for most of us. But I gotta get up to my chair and reach the light. That I can do easily. And then my wrist, my hands, it's different. Some things I can do, but I always try to ask for help when there's people around me. I think about it. If there's someone willing to help you, then there's no reason to get mad.
Sure. Yeah, well, that's good. It's good attitude. No.
But like I said, I do have times, because we're all human, and it's okay to express.
That's really important. A lot of people that stuff things away, if it just stews in you, it's no good. So it takes a lot of courage to go ahead and feel bad sometimes, or at any time. That's a sign of strength, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say here, I may not show it, but I do go through it.
Right, sure. Yeah.
So now we're wrapping up, this last minute or so. I let my guests shout themselves out, where they can find them, what they're up to, and how they can support the organization.
Well, yeah. Well, we have a website. It's connerscause.org, CONNERS cause.org, and that it gives a pretty in-depth look at what we do and what we've done and what we're after. We have a golf tournament coming September 13th that we always try and get a big enough showing for it to be worthwhile. So you can learn a lot about Connor's Cause there. And other than that, I think everybody's just pretty happy to be able to have things get a little bit back to normal here with COVID kind of phasing out here, and looking forward to the future.
And then, is there any message to a viewer that you may have? Maybe they're going through like you said, they have a relative or someone going through that type of illness.
Well, yes, actually, and it's to stay in the present. That's a really, really hard thing to do, and takes a lot of energy. But it's easy to say, well, you just have to have a good attitude with things. But what I learned is, gosh, if you look to the past at the bum deal you got with why did this happen to me, or if you look to the future and all the bad things that can happen, doesn't do you a lot of good. So to stay in the present with your feelings on things takes a ton of energy, and just in life in general, just to be successful, that I think that goes a long way too, to balance, to keep things in balance, and to juggle things where a lot of people tout success as making a ton of money, or being just doing some offshoot things that are incredible. But I think what I would try and do, and not that it really happens, is to keep a balance in juggling things where things change all the time, and it takes a lot of energy to deal with, juggling what you need to do with your personal life and your professional life, and how that's going to impact you, and try and keep it in mind all the time to thrive. It's I've talked to a number of families that have lost children, over the years, and makes me feel good to be able to let them see that, you can not just, survive, but thrive going through such tragedy as losing, your child, where over time, it's not like you're stuffing it away at all, but things take their course, and a lot of good things can, come from just what happens in your life. And when they see me being able to, be happy and thrive, I think it helps a lot. Like, I had met some people early on, right after Connor had passed away, and I was just blown away that, this couple had lost their child, 10 years or 20 years earlier, and they were happy and healthy. And it was shocking to me to see that, they were doing okay, and that was possible. So it's, I would say just trying to deal with things in the present. It's super hard to do, and can't, not that anyone can really do that, but to be mindful of it, I think is good advice.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. My name is Emmanuel. I'm joined with Jon Champ. Make sure you follow us, subscribe to our YouTube, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.